Just enough to take those sharp points off. Again, I'm using some locking pliers, kind of a pointy nosed locking pliers, because this blade gets hot, plus I don't want to grind my fingers. Okay, now I'm going to try to sharpen the tip a little bit. Put a little bit of a point on it. There we go. There you are. And a nice sharp point. Let me get rid of that a little bit. Saw blade makes a good material for this because it's hard enough. I can sharpen it. It's going to keep a point pretty well compared to like a nail, which is hard metal, but nothing as hard as the saw blade steel. So there's our knife. We need a way to hold it in the marking gauge in the stem. So I am going to cut a square hole that goes all the way through the end of the stem. And I want that hole to be about 5/8 of an inch from the end. The hole is going to be 1/4 of an inch wide. So I'm just marking off 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to cut a hole between those two marks there, 1/4 inch apart. Okay. And I'm going to center it. This machine is going to center it for me. This machine is a hollow chisel mortiser. That's a mouthful. Hollow chisel mortiser. It works kind of like a drill press. This is a hollow chisel. Inside the hollow chisel is a special drill bit. What happens is when you lower the handle and push it down into the wood, the drill, of course, drills the hole. And as you know, that makes it round. But the chisel part is going to make it square. I have a couple here that I'm not using to show you. This is what a hollow chisel looks like. It's hollow and it's 4-sided. This one's 1/4 of an inch. That's a specialized drill bit that goes inside. Again, the drill is going to drill out the center of the hole, while the 4 little very sharp chisels on the outside are going to cut the 4 corners. Okay, that's all this machine does, is cut square holes. This bit in the mortiser right now is 1/4 inch wide. That's basically the width of the blade or the knife I'm going to use. So I line up. I've got a big stack of lumber here because this is so skinny. I need to raise the table up. Well, my table doesn't raise up. So I've stacked some flat boards here, and I'm just going to aim the chisel right between my pencil lines. I need to move the camera out of my way a little bit, and let's zoom in on the action if we can here. That's a pretty good view. Maybe up a little bit. Go down a little, raise it up. These have a tendency, they can get stuck if you try to go dig out too much at a time. So I do like to do a little bit at a time. Each time I plunge it, I'm going a little bit deeper. I believe I'm through now. Yep. There's our square looking hole. I think that's amazing, don't you? Now next, we don't want just a square hole. here's a cross section. I've already cut this with the mortiser, and then I cut a chunk out of the side so you can see what it looks like from the side. So that's where our blade's gonna go, kind of like that. So to help hold the blade in that hole or that mortise, we are gonna, excuse me, we are gonna make the hole look like a wedge shape, like this, okay? So this side's square, but this side is not. I've determined I'm gonna use a 7-degree wedge. That's what that is. That's just a piece of wood I colored blue with a marker. That's a 7-degree wedge shape. I'm gonna make that mortise wedge shaped. And the way I do that, well, there's a couple ways I could do it. First, I tried it a couple times using a chisel. I used, where are we out here? There we are. I used the chisel to chisel away that angle by hand. Found that to be, it worked, but I think the mortiser can do it a different way. Then I decided I'd give this a try. I angled a piece of wood to 7 degrees that I can rest my project wood on. Let's see, how did I just cut that like that? So I want to go this way. And I'm going to aim the chisel what I'm up to is I'm moving the hole over about 1/16 of an inch or so. So now I'm going to aim the edge of the chisel towards, let's see, we're out of view here. We're going to aim the chisel for that line now. And my stem piece, notice, is sitting on that sloped piece. So now when the chisel goes in, it's going to go in at the same angle as my wedge. Just got to make sure that the chisel aims for that line. So on this side of the hole, it's going to be like a rectangle, but on the opposite side, it's still going to be a square. So here we go. And there we have it. Notice this side is now wider, this direction, and that side is still a square. And hopefully the wedge, when it goes through in this direction, notice how it fits tight on this side, and it also fits tight on this side, so it's wider, as you can see, on one side. Okay, so now my knife is going to sit there, and now we need to make a wedge much like this to fit in there. When you wedge both the blade and the wedge in, if you tap this in tight enough, it's going to hold that blade in also, so it doesn't move around. Just an old-fashioned way of holding that in there. I'm going to make the wedge out of this 1/4 inch thick walnut wood. And I might as well just use my wedge shape that's the right size and angle. That's a 7-degree angle, by the way, 7 degrees. I'm just going to trace that, lining this side up with the flat edge of the board already. Trace that shape. I don't know if that pencil line shows up very well. I could use my white pencil. That'll make it easier for you to see. That's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to cut that on the bandsaw. So I just cut that on the bandsaw. Notice I left the pencil line. Good idea to always leave the pencil line because that's my target. That is my goal. If I cut along that line with the bandsaw, bandsaw doesn't cut super straight and it doesn't leave it very smooth. So to smooth it out and make it nice and flat, I really think the best tool in this case is a block plane. You could probably achieve it with sandpaper and a sanding block for sure. But really, a really well sharpened plane is going to leave the wood smoother than sandpaper. Get your point of view where you can see me. There you go. Just a few slices. So there is our roughness from the saw blade, and that does a great job of making that nice and smooth. I can compare it with my template that I'm trying to go for. I can also compare it and see how it fits in that cutout. That's fitting good. So now I know it's going to fit pretty close in my stem. Okay, it fits tight on this side and it fits tight on that side. Now I'm going to take the blade itself, my knife, and the wedge. I'm going to wedge them both in there. Got a little bit of a chip out right there. Okay, and then I can use my pencil now to mark this where I need to cut this off. I don't need that, that's extra. Okay, so I take it out again. I'm gonna go cut that on the bandsaw. So I just cut that there. And we'll check our fit. We put in the blade, then the wedge. Careful because that end is sharp. Push it in tight. Probably need to cut off a tiny bit more because you can see how it's sticking out a little bit there. Okay, or I could sand that off, but that's fitting tight. And once you tap that in, doesn't come out easy. Why does it need to come out at all? Well, eventually you're going to need to sharpen over time the blade again. So you need to take it out somehow. And to make it easier to take out and to make it look pretty, I'm going to change the shape of this a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of flair. Let's see, I want it to go like that. And then kind of a little round bump thing. That's a pretty common shape for wedges in tools. Don't know what it is. It just looks pretty for one thing. Plus it gives you something for your thumb to grab onto to pull back. Okay, I will have you help me. Okay, so I cut that out on the bandsaw, and you can use a sharp chisel to chop and smooth things out. You could certainly also use sandpaper. Down in this curve right here, I've already done this once, but off camera, but I'll show you. I just use the bevel side of that chisel, will help me reach in that curve and allow me to actually go in a curve shape to smooth out that section right there, just real careful. The sharp blade of a chisel or a plane, remember, can leave your wood more smooth than sandpaper if the blade is sharp. So this completes all of our parts. We've got the fence. We've got, let's back up. We got the fence, we got the stem, we've got the locking knob, and we've got the wedge to hold in the knife blade, saw blade that we're using as a marking knife. And let's give it a try. We lock it down. I would say that's about 1/4 of an inch from the end. Could measure it with a ruler. Yeah, about 5/16. I'm just going to take this old V block See if we can mark a line along the edge here. Remember, take some light cuts at first. Don't push very hard. Then 2 or 3 strokes in, push hard, and see if we can see that line, scratched line in there. Yeah, that's a pretty good view. Nice straight line. The only thing left would be to, next time I'll try to bring some Danish oil in, and I'm going to coat it with some Danish oil, give it a nice pretty finish, probably 2 or 3 coats. Could also use boiled linseed oil. You could, I suppose, maybe spray on a finish lightly. You don't want anything really thick on something like this. It's going to wear off anyway from all the handling and tool usage, but it'll make it look prettier. It'll make it last longer if you protect it with wood finish.